You tell yourself you're chasing potential, but something older and quieter is dragging you forward like a hunted animal. You keep projecting your life into some later version of yourself, some safer season that never quite arrives, and you call it ambition, vision, planning. But underneath the language, your nervous system is whispering a single message: here is not safe, now is not safe, this shift is not safe. You feel it in the micro-tension behind your eyes when you try to relax. You feel it in the way your jaw clenches when things finally start going right. You feel it in the strange panic that rises the moment life gets a little too calm. On the surface, you say you want a quantum shift, a new reality, a new timeline, a new coherence in your field. But deep beneath your conscious intentions, your body has been trained by years of experience, subtle disappointments, sharp shocks, and unspoken losses to believe that safety only exists in the next moment, in the next breakthrough, in the next version of you that hasn't arrived yet. So your attention keeps leaving your body like a satellite that refuses to land. Your awareness hovers above your life, scanning, predicting, rehearsing, bracing. The quantum field responds faithfully to this. It reads your true broadcast, not your affirmations. It listens to the frequency of your nervous system, not the scripts you repeat in the mirror. You say, "I am ready." Your cells say, "We are not." And the field never lies. Right now, as you hear these words, something in you is starting to recognize the pattern. Not the surface pattern of procrastination or distraction, but a deeper loop. Every time the possibility of real change approaches, your system triggers an ancient protocol escape into the future. Think more, plan harder, gather more information, create more scenarios, anything to avoid inhabiting the moment where reality actually rewrites itself. You have mistaken hypervigilance for vision. You have mistaken chronic forecasting for spiritual foresight. You have mistaken the survival pattern of never fully arrive for the path of evolution. Your nervous system learned that stability often precedes impact. That joy is often followed by loss. That visibility is followed by backlash. So, when a genuine quantum shift comes close, when timelines start to reorganize, when improbable synchronicities line up, when the observer effect intensifies around your choices, your body doesn't celebrate. It flinches. It assumes that any massive upgrade will demand an equally massive cost. So you chase the future as a way of staying ahead of pain that hasn't even happened. You project yourself into the next version of your life, not because you're greedy for more, but because your unconscious believes the present cannot hold you without breaking. But something else is waking up now. There is a part of you, older than your fear, that understands the mechanics of reality at a deeper level, the part that knows your nervous system is not just a bundle of nerves and hormones, but a living quantum interface, an instrument that tunes your relationship to the field. This part of you has been sending signals for years, moments of uncanny calm, flashes of inexplicable trust, brief windows where you feel safe without needing a reason. Those were not random. They were rehearsals. You are not being asked to chase a future where your shift is finally allowed. You are being invited into a present where your shift is experienced as safe now, in your breath, in your muscles, in the quiet spaces between your thoughts. And the very fact that these words found you in this exact configuration of your life is not accidental. It is the signal that the field is ready to match what your deeper self has always known your body could learn to receive. You keep wondering why your manifestations feel delayed, why your quantum shifts show up around you but not through you, why other people seem to stabilize in new realities you only taste for a moment. You call it bad luck, misalignment, spiritual warfare, astrological timing, but underneath those labels, something simpler is happening. Your nervous system does not yet trust the miracle it keeps asking for. You have to see this clearly. Your nervous system is not an abstract concept. It is the literal wiring of how you meet reality. It decides faster than thought whether something is safe or dangerous, familiar or foreign, tolerable or overwhelming. It scans your environment, your relationships, your own inner sensations thousands of times per second, and it makes one primary decision: brace or open. You can speak all the affirmations you want, but if your body is braced, your field is broadcasting threat. If your field is broadcasting threat, the quantum possibilities around you distort to match it. Opportunities glitch, people misread you, timing skews. The door that should have swung open for you opens halfway, then slams shut, and you tell yourself, maybe it just wasn't meant for me. But what if it was? What if the only reason it didn't stabilize is because your system has been trained to associate expansion with danger? Think back, not with nostalgia, but with precision. Remember the times you let yourself hope, really hope, and reality seemed to punish you for it. Remember the relationship where you finally let your guard down, only to be blindsided. The moment you stepped into visibility and immediately felt attacked, criticized, or abandoned. The childhood atmosphere of emotional chaos you called normal. Those weren't just experiences, they were encoding events. Each one taught your nervous system. When you soften, you get hurt. When you expect good, the floor drops. When you show up fully, you become a target. When you allow yourself to land, something disappears. So your system adapted. It became brilliantly efficient at staying one step ahead of pain. It learned to never fully exhale, never fully receive, never fully trust stability. It wired in a rule: safety is in the not yet. Safety lives in preparation, improvement, projection. You feel more comfortable in the idea of who you might become than in the felt reality of who you are right now. This is why you can binge quantum content, understand intricate metaphors about the observer effect, and talk fluently about timelines and parallel realities, yet still feel like your own life refuses to move. On the mental plane, you believe in quantum shifts. On the somatic plane, you are still living in an earlier chapter where every upgrade carried a hidden cost. The field listens to your somatic truth. It hears your shallow breathing when things go well. It hears your insomnia after a breakthrough. It hears the quiet dread under your achievements. So when you ask for a leap in timeline, a radical opening of possibility, the field checks with your nervous system and receives a conflicting signal. Yes, but also no. Want, but also fear. More, but only if nothing changes inside me. And the field, being exquisitely coherent, mirrors that incoherence back to you. Glimpses, but not anchors. Openings, but not foundations. Synchronicities, but not structures. You then interpret this as spiritual testing, cosmic delay, or a sign that you are unworthy. In reality, it is feedback, not a punishment, not a rejection feedback. Your life is showing you, with ruthless precision, where your nervous system still doesn't believe that a softened, regulated, present version of you can survive in the reality you say you want. This is not a moral failing, it is a pattern. A pattern born of nervous tissue and calcium channels, of cortisol floods and adrenaline spikes, of nights when your body learned to sleep light because deep rest was not safe in that house, in that dynamic, in that era of your life. A pattern that once kept you intact now keeps you exiled from the very timeline that would heal you. You feel the tension, don't you? The pull between the future you keep chasing and the present moment you keep abandoning. The subtle accusation you carry against yourself. If I were more spiritual, more disciplined, more surrendered, I'd already be living that reality. But it's not about spiritual performance. It's about nervous system permission. Your quantum shift is not waiting for you to become more worthy. It is waiting for your body to receive a new answer to an old question. Is it truly safe for me to live in the reality I keep imagining? Until that answer moves from an intellectual yes to a cellular yes, you will continue running toward a future that always stays half a step ahead. And that's why this transmission is not here to flatter your potential. It is here to expose the unconscious contract your nervous system has with fear so that you can finally renegotiate it. You have been told that you create your reality with your thoughts, but that was only a fragment of the equation. You don't create from thought alone. You create from the state that thought is floating in. Thought is the story. Your nervous system is the author's hand. The quantum field reads the hand, not just the words. Look closely at how you move through a single day. You wake up, and before you've even fully opened your eyes, a scanning operation begins. Your attention checks your messages, your responsibilities, your unfinished tasks, your unresolved conversations. You feel a subtle surge in your chest, a tightening in your gut, a background hum of "not enough yet." You are alive, but your awareness is already leaning forward, past the moment you're actually in. This is the observer loop that has trapped you. You watch your life from the vantage point of a future you never let yourself reach. As the observer, you stand outside your own experience, analyzing, critiquing, forecasting. You've made your consciousness a surveillance system instead of an instrument of presence. And the more you observe from a distance, the less safe your body feels, because no one is actually inhabiting it. It is like a house with the lights on, but no one home. Of course it feels vulnerable. Of course it stays braced. So your system creates a workaround. Stay mobile in time. Stay ahead. Stay in the next thing. Keep your locus of identity a few hours, a few days, a few years in front of you. You tell yourself this is vision, but often it is self-abandonment disguised as strategy. From the perspective of the quantum field, this looks like a constantly flickering signal. Your attention rarely dwells long enough in the now to collapse probability into stable form. You keep sampling potential realities instead of inhabiting one long enough for it to crystallize. You are like an electron that refuses to localize, terrified that if you collapse into a single state, you will be trapped or harmed. So you hover. You browse possibilities. You imagine different lives. You scroll through other people's timelines as if they were alternatives in a multiverse you somehow missed. You keep your nervous system suspended in a low-grade instability, because part of you believes that being fully here is dangerous, that something will be taken, that someone will leave, that the next hit will land when you are finally unguarded. The truth is hard and clean. Your past trained you to equate presence with impact, presence with conflict, presence with disappointment, presence with loss. And yet, presence is the only place quantum shift can actually occur. You can't rewire your nervous system in the hypothetical. You can't receive a new timeline from an idea. You can only repattern your field from the point where consciousness meets sensation, the breath entering, the shoulders softening, the jaw unclenching, the heart rate slowing enough for you to realize that nothing catastrophic is happening in this exact second. The observer loop you're stuck in is not just mental overthinking, it is a closed circuit. Your body senses threat. Your mind scans for what could go wrong. Your scanning amplifies the sense of threat. Your body tightens further. The field reflects that. As more micro-disruptions in your reality, you interpret those disruptions as proof that you were right to be braced. You are not failing at manifestation, you are succeeding at survival logic. And survival logic does not care about elegance, coherence, or spiritual language. It only cares about what kept you alive yesterday. If anxiety kept you prepared, it sees anxiety as a tool. If self-sabotage prevented you from stepping into environments where you might have been harmed, it sees self-sabotage as protection. It will not relinquish these tools just because you have watched a video about timelines and quantum jumps. So the field waits, not in judgment, not in impatience, but in exact resonance. It holds around you a lattice of probabilities that correspond precisely to the signal you're emitting. When your nervous system is broadcasting, it isn't safe to arrive. The field respects that boundary. It bends in your favor by not delivering the full weight of the reality you keep asking for, because to do so would overwhelm the very system that has to host it. That's why, when glimpses of your quantum shift slip through a relationship that feels different, an opportunity that aligns eerily well, a sudden easing of circumstances, your system often reacts not with peace, but with suspicion. You feel a compulsion to interrogate it, poke holes in it, test it, push it away before it has the chance to abandon you first. You don't do this because you are broken. You do it because your body is trying to stay one move ahead of anticipated pain. But what if your next level of evolution is not another leap into an imagined future, but a reversal of direction? What if your quantum jump is not forward, but inward, collapsing your scattered attention back into the exact coordinates of your current life and teaching your nervous system that this is not a war zone anymore? You have lived so long as an external observer of your own existence that you've forgotten what it's like to inhabit your timeline from the inside, to feel the texture of your reality as it is, instead of as a stepping stone to something else. to let the moment touch you without immediately converting it into data for some future outcome. The shift you're chasing cannot land in a body that is never home. You have been training your mind for years. Now, you are being asked to train your field through your flesh. Your nervous system is not a mistake inside an otherwise spiritual being. It is the bridge. It is the living circuitry between your consciousness and the quantum substrate of reality. Every micro-adjustment in your body, every breath you hold, every shoulder you drop, every time you choose to stay instead of dissociate, sends a new configuration into the field. You keep asking the universe to send you a different life, but the universe is waiting for you to send it a different signal. Understand this: safety for your system is not built from affirmations. Safety is built from repetition. What is repeated becomes familiar, and what is familiar is what your body will call safe, even if it is painful. That is why chaos can feel comfortable. That is why disappointment can feel like home. That is why chasing the future feels more normal than inhabiting the present. So, if you want your quantum shift to stabilize, you cannot just demand a new timeline. You have to train your nervous system to recognize stability as safe. This begins in small, almost insulting ways. You sit in a room where nothing catastrophic is happening. Your mind tells you it's boring. Your body feels restless. It wants to reach for a screen, a distraction, a plan, anything that will project you forward. In that moment, you are standing at the doorway of a new reality. If you choose to leave your body again, you reinforce the old mapping. Here is not safe, elsewhere is. But if you stay, if you notice the texture of the chair beneath you, the weight of your hands, the sound of the air, and you breathe as if this exact moment is allowed to exist without being optimized, something subtle begins to shift. Your nervous system receives new data. Presence occurred, and nothing bad happened. No attack, no collapse, no loss. One repetition is not enough, but 1,000 repetitions become a new law inside you. You are not just calming down. You are reprogramming what the quantum field interprets as your baseline signature. You are teaching the field, and your own cells, that you can host coherence. Coherence is not a mystical word. It is the condition in which your thoughts, emotions, and sensations stop pulling in different directions. Your mind says yes, and your body does not scream no underneath it. Your desire to expand is not immediately met by a contraction disguised as prudence. In coherence, your system sends a clean instruction. This reality is allowed. The field responds faster to coherence than to intensity. You have tried intensity. You have tried forcing change with willpower spikes, emotional surges, declarations made under the influence of desperation or inspiration. You've felt the rush, the momentary high of, this time, everything will be different. And then, as your nervous system reasserted its old map, the surge faded and the field settled back into familiar configurations. Intensity without safety collapses, coherence with safety compounds. This is why some people can make small moves and see disproportionate effects. Their systems are not in civil war. When they choose, their field believes them. When they receive, their body doesn't secretly reject the experience as unsafe. They are not more spiritual than you. They are simply less fractured in the place where reality listens the most. Your work now is not to become more impressive. It is to become less divided. You do this by noticing every moment your body wants to escape the now, especially when nothing is wrong. You watch the impulse to reach for the next project, the next crisis, the next fantasy. You feel the subtle anxiety that arises when there is finally nothing to fix. You recognize that feeling not as a sign that you're failing, but as a withdrawal symptom from a lifetime of emergency. Your addiction has not been to chaos itself, but to the dopamine of anticipation, the slight chemical relief that comes from believing you will solve everything later. As you detox from that, there will be emptiness, a strange silence, a sense of, shouldn't I be doing more? This is where most people abort their shift and go back to chasing the future, because the nervous system misreads the absence of adrenaline as danger. You are being asked to do something rarer. Stay long enough in that silence for a new baseline to emerge. In that baseline, your heartbeat stops performing for invisible threats. Your breath no longer rehearses for impact. Your muscles begin to understand that they are not required to hold the entire world upright. As your body softens, your field stops broadcasting emergency signals into the quantum web. And where emergency stops, capacity begins. Capacity to receive without collapsing. Capacity to rest without punishment. Capacity to be seen without being hunted. This is the ground from which your quantum shift can rise like architecture instead of flashing like a temporary vision. You are not just preparing for a mystical event. You are running new wiring through an old house so that when the current of your next reality flows, it doesn't burn the structure down. There is a contract you signed without knowing, not on paper, not with words, but with your own biology. It says, I agree to stay small, scattered, and slightly ahead of myself, if that is what it takes to avoid the impact I once survived by bracing. End quote. Your nervous system co-wrote this contract with every shock you endured. Your brain, whose primary function is prediction, encoded those shocks as evidence. It built an internal model of reality. When I expand, I get hurt. When I trust, I get blindsided. When I arrive, something is taken. That model now lives in your body as reflex. You are not just dealing with memories, you are dealing with predictions. Your brain predicts the future by replaying the past and slightly updating it. Your nervous system responds to those predictions as if they were happening now. This is why you feel anxiety before anything has gone wrong. Your system is not responding to the present moment. It is responding to its own simulated forecast. So when you ask for a quantum shift, a timeline where you are more visible, more resourced, more loved, more powerful, your prediction system runs a silent calculation. Greater visibility equals greater threat. Greater intimacy equals greater loss. Greater power equals greater backlash. Then it quietly instructs your body to sabotage the very path it is walking. You forget to reply to the message that would have opened a door. You downplay your abilities at the exact moment you need to be clear. You feel an inexplicable exhaustion right when it's time to step forward. From the outside, it looks like procrastination or confusion. From the inside, it is a protective strategy. If I never fully step into the reality I'm asking for, I can never be hurt in it. To change this, you are not being asked to fight your fear. You are being asked to renegotiate the contract. A contract is renegotiated not with force, but with new terms and new evidence. The new terms sound like this. I am willing to let my body learn that expansion can feel safe. I am willing to let my nervous system update its predictions. I am willing to let joy, stability, and coherence become familiar enough that they no longer register as threat. New evidence is not abstract, it is lived. It happens when you allow yourself a small increment of expansion and then stay with the sensations that follow instead of abandoning them. You speak a truth that scares you, and instead of immediately analyzing how it was received, you notice your own trembling, your own heartbeat, your own breath, and you breathe as if you are allowed to exist even if someone doesn't understand you. In that moment, your body receives new data. I expressed myself and did not die. I was seen and did not vanish. I stepped forward, and impact did not fall out of the sky. This is how prediction models change, not through intellectual insight alone, but through experiences that contradict the old map while you remain conscious inside them. Every time you stay present through an experience your old self would have escaped, you are performing memory reconsolidation. You are revisiting the emotional imprint of the past, but pairing it with a different outcome. The brain, faced with conflicting data, updates the story. The nervous system, sensing that expansion did not equal catastrophe, relaxes its grip by a fraction. Fractions matter in the quantum. A 1-degree shift in your baseline state changes the range of probabilities that can coherently exist around you. Small increments in safety open corridors in the field that were previously inaccessible because your system could not have tolerated them. The reality you want is not just bigger, it is quieter. It requires a more regulated host. This is why your quantum shift has been delayed, not because you are behind, but because your body is sacred enough to be protected from realities it cannot yet safely metabolize. You are not being punished. You are being buffered. You are being kept, for now, At the edge of doors you are about to be able to walk through without collapsing. And that "about to" is not a cosmic tease, it is a biological process. With every repetition of presence, with every cycle of breath you anchor into a non-emergency moment, you are weakening the old contract. The field feels this. It registers that your broadcast is less frantic, less fractured, less contradictory. Your prayers, intentions, and choices begin to align instead of cancel each other out. Your desire for change is no longer countered by a body screaming, "Stay hidden." The signal becomes clearer, cleaner, strong enough to carry more voltage. At some point, and that point is closer than your fear suggests, a threshold will be reached where the new contract outweighs the old one, where your system believes, more than it doubts, that a regulated, fully present, you can survive in the reality you keep seeing in flashes. That threshold is not a date on a calendar, it is a frequency in your tissues. And as you approach it, the world around you will begin to reorganize, not as a reward, but as a reflection of a nervous system that finally believes the quantum shift it has been chasing has a place to land. You have spent years asking, when will my timeline shift? The more accurate question now is, when will my body allow the shift I keep summoning? Because your quantum field is no longer the obstacle, your nervous system is the gate. To open that gate, you are not being asked to become superhuman, you are being asked to become precise. Precision starts with this recognition. Your system doesn't change in generalities, it changes in encounters. It changes in specific moments where you do something different and stay conscious while you do it. Each of those moments is a tiny right operation into the quantum field, updating the code of what is possible for you. Begin with one of the most radical experiments you can perform, treating neutrality as safety instead of as danger. Your nervous system, conditioned by years of subtle or overt chaos, often misreads neutrality. A day without drama, a conversation without conflict, a week without crisis, as unnatural, even suspicious. When nothing is wrong, your body starts searching for what must be wrong. Your mind spins narratives to justify its own tension. You label this boredom, stagnation, feeling stuck. In truth, much of it is withdrawal, the absence of adrenaline your system used to rely on. So you practice something counterintuitive. On a day where nothing catastrophic is happening, you notice the old impulse to stir something up, pick a fight in your head, catastrophize your finances, fantasize about abandoning your current life for a more dramatic one. Instead of obeying that impulse, you pause. You say internally, "This is what safety can feel like before my body recognizes it as safety." Then you breathe as if that sentence were true, even if you don't fully believe it yet. In that breath, you are not just calming yourself, you are sending a message into the field. I am willing to let uneventful moments register as allowed, not as wrong. The quantum responds to willingness. Willingness is a small opening in an otherwise closed system. It is the difference between a locked vault and a door that is at least cracked. Through that crack, new information can flow, and the new information is not just ideas, but experiences that contradict your old mapping. Imagine your nervous system like a tuning fork that has always vibrated at anticipate threat. Every time you remain present in a moment where the threat does not arrive, the fork's vibration shifts by a fraction. Enough fractions, and the tone changes completely. This is installing safety, not pretending everything is fine. Not bypassing real danger, but giving your system honest data. Right now, in this specific second, nothing is hurting me. I am allowed to occupy this moment fully without prepaying for future pain. As you do this repeatedly, your baseline begins to move from hyper-alert to quietly aware. The field tracks that move. Where your signal was once jagged and erratic, spikes of intensity followed by crashes of exhaustion, it becomes steadier. This steadiness is not dullness, it is capacity. Capacity is what allows you to hold more reality without disintegrating, more love without panic, more visibility without hiding, more resources without guilt, more influence without self-erasure. When your capacity expands, your timeline options change. Realities that would have once overwhelmed your system become viable. People whose nervous systems are also regulated start showing up. Because like attracts like, not just in thought, but in state. You begin to notice a different kind of synchronicity, not just dramatic signs and symbols, but subtle alignments. The email that arrives when you're actually resourced enough to respond. The opportunity that appears when you no longer need it to save you. The relationship that unfolds at a pace your body can actually keep up with. These are not coincidences. They are the physics of coherence. Coherence is not just an inner feeling. It is a measurable configuration, heart rhythms syncing, brain waves smoothing, electromagnetic fields around your body becoming more ordered. In that order, your instructions to reality stop contradicting themselves. You are no longer broadcasting, "Bring me change, but don't touch my patterns." You minor spirus. In fashion 17s, you are broadcasting, "Bring me only the changes I have capacity to honor, inhabit, and sustain." The quantum is exact. It will not interpret that as laziness. It will interpret it as clarity. Clarity is magnetic. There is a moment, and you will feel it as surely as you feel the shift between inhale and exhale when your system crosses from "I hope it's safe" to "I know" at a cellular level that it can be safe for me to live in the reality I've been chasing. Velia. At that point, the future you've been running toward begins to move toward you, not as a single explosion of destiny, but as a series of convergences, people, places, decisions, and inner signals, aligning in ways that feel less like a miracle imposed from outside and more like inevitability emerging from inside. You will recognize it not by how dramatic it looks, but by how quietly your body receives it. No spike, no crash, just a deep, unfamiliar, exquisite sense of course. Lementa, 2-0. That, of course, is the sound of a nervous system that finally believes its own quantum shift is safe. There is a point in your evolution where the axis flips. Until now, your life has felt like one long forward lean, a constant reaching into the next hour, the next week, the next version of you that might finally feel like enough. Your nervous system rehearsed the future as a way to avoid the intensity of actually arriving. The future became both your escape route and your prison. But as safety installs itself into your field, something strange begins to happen. The future stops outrunning you. You notice it first in small ways. You have a task you would normally dread, a conversation that used to trigger 3 days of anticipatory anxiety. Before, your mind would run simulations, what they might say, how you might fail, what consequences might follow. Your body would respond as if all of those simulations were real, flooding you with stress chemicals for events that hadn't occurred. Now, you catch the first flicker of that pattern, the mental spiral starting to spin up, and you intervene not with force, but with presence. You bring your attention down from the scenario into the sensation. What is actually happening in your body, right now, before the call, before the email, before the outcome? Perhaps your chest is tight, your stomach is clenched, your throat feels narrow. Instead of abandoning those sensations to climb into the future, you stay, you notice, you breathe. You are not trying to convince yourself that everything will go perfectly. You are letting your system experience something more radical. Even if I don't know how this will unfold, I can stay with myself in the not knowing. In that moment, the contract shifts again. Previously, your unspoken agreement was, "I will leave my body to manage what might happen." Now, a new line is being written. "I will remain with my body through whatever happens." The field feels the difference. A consciousness that refuses to abandon itself emits a different signal than a consciousness that is always negotiating its own absence. The quantum listens to the way you inhabit uncertainty. When your presence remains intact in the unknown, probabilities around you begin to organize toward coherence instead of chaos, because your system is no longer broadcasting emergency as the default setting. You begin to experience time differently. Instead of feeling like you are perpetually late to your own life, you catch up to the moment you are actually in. You taste your food instead of eating strategy. You listen to someone speak without silently composing your reply. You feel the way sunlight touches your skin without converting it into background noise. It sounds trivial, it is not. Each time you fully inhabit a moment, you anchor a point on your timeline. The more points you anchor, the less your life feels like a blurry streak, and the more it becomes a framed sequence, a coherent trajectory, rather than a smear of half-lived experiences. From the perspective of the quantum field, it looks like this. Your wave function, which was once spread thin across countless imagined futures, begins to concentrate. You collapse more consistently into the reality you are actually choosing, instead of oscillating between desire and dread. Your signal becomes denser, more specific. The field responds by forming denser, more specific configurations around you. This is where your so-called luck changes. You start to be in the right place at the right time, not because of some random favor, but because you are finally in time instead of perpetually ahead of it. Opportunities that would have once flown past you while you were mentally elsewhere now meet you while you are actually here. The future, which once felt like a distant mirage you were chasing, becomes something different, an echo of the state you hold now. You feel this the first time you notice that a choice made from regulation leads to a chain of events that feels eerily natural. The conversation flows, the email is answered, the obstacle dissolves without theatrics. There is no adrenaline spike, no dramatic high, just a quiet, steady unfolding that fits. Your old self might be disappointed. It expected fireworks. Your new self understands. The absence of volatility is the miracle. There will still be challenges. The point is not to engineer a life with no friction. The point is that your nervous system stops reading every unknown as an existential threat. You encounter difficulty, and instead of immediately fleeing into the future for a rescue fantasy, you notice your body, you notice your breath, and you remain. You are no longer a refugee from your own timeline. You become its resident, its architect, its host, and as you host your life from the inside, the field recalibrates once more. The question is no longer, how do I get to that quantum shift out there? The question becomes, what reality becomes inevitable when I no longer abandon myself to reach it? You are beginning to discover the answer. You are beginning to discover the answer, and now the field is asking you to live it on purpose. A quantum shift is not a single ecstatic moment. It is a pattern of being. If your nervous system is the gate, then these patterns are the keys you keep turning until the lock no longer remembers how to stay closed. The first key is deceptively simple. You stop treating your body as an obstacle to your spirituality and start treating it as your primary instrument. You wake up, and before gravity pulls you into the noise, you place one hand on your chest, one on your lower abdomen. You don't recite a script. You listen. You feel what's there before your mind names it. Maybe it's heaviness. Maybe it's anticipation. Maybe it's nothing in particular. You say, internally, with no drama, I am here with you. Not, I am fixing you. Not, I am transcending you. Just, I am here. In that sentence, the observer and the observed begin to reconcile. The part of you that watches and the part of you that feels stand in the same place for a moment instead of tearing in opposite directions. This micro-act collapses the observer loop. You are no longer hovering outside your life. You are inhabiting it. The second key is how you respond to activation. Previously, activation meant escape, a difficult email, a sharp tone in someone's voice, an unexpected delay, and your system would explode into old predictions. You would either perform, shut down, or sprint into the future mentally to try to preempt the worst. Now, you learn to recognize activation as data, not destiny. Your heart rate increases, your palms sweat, your thoughts speed up. Instead of branding this as failure, I thought I was healed. Why am I still triggered? You notice that something precious is occurring. Your nervous system is revealing where it still does not believe the world is safe. You give it what it never had, a regulated witness. You slow your exhale, lengthening it slightly beyond your inhale. You feel your feet against the ground. You let your eyes soften their focus. These are not spiritual cliches. They are manipulations of your own physiology, signals to your brainstem that you are not under immediate attack. You are installing a new rule. Even in activation, I do not abandon myself. Nest. Over time, this rule rewires the association between intensity and self-evacuation. Your body begins to learn that discomfort does not automatically mean danger, and that danger does not automatically mean disappearance. This is how capacity is grown, not by avoiding activation, but by staying intact through it. The third key is how you approach desire. Your old pattern treated desire as a summons to chase. You felt a longing for a new reality, and instantly your awareness sprinted down timelines, strategizing how to reach it, bargaining with the universe, whipping your nervous system into a frenzy of how and when. Desire became a source of agitation instead of alignment. Now, when desire rises, you treat it as a visitation, a message from a version of you that already exists in the quantum field, checking whether your system is becoming ready to host it. You don't lunge, you don't deny. You let the image, the feeling, the possibility appear, and then you bring it into the present instead of escaping into it. You ask, what would one cell in my body feel like if this were already my reality? Not your whole life, not your entire future. One cell, one breath, one gesture. Maybe that means standing a little differently, speaking one sentence more honestly, saying no where you used to say yes, or yes where you used to disappear. These micro-embodiments send a clear instruction into the field. I am not just dreaming this reality, I am rehearsing it somatically. Rehearsal is how the nervous system learns new roles. You are not waiting to feel ready. You are giving your body tiny, digestible experiences of the future you keep seeing, until that future no longer feels like foreign terrain, but like an extension of what is already normal. And in all of this, the quantum field is not a distant, mystical backdrop. It is the immediate medium that registers every shift in your coherence. When you breathe differently, the electromagnetic field around your heart changes. When your heart field changes, the information you broadcast into the quantum vacuum changes. When that broadcast changes, probabilities rearrange around you in ways your mind will later call synchronicity. None of this requires perfection. You will still have days where you chase the future, where your nervous system reverts to old contracts, where the old timeline feels louder than the new one. Those days are not regressions. They are opportunities to practice the most advanced protocol of all, the refusal to make your humanity an enemy of your evolution. You notice the slip, you feel the tension, and instead of attacking yourself, you return, hand to chest, breath into belly. The simple, radical statement, I am here with you, even now. In that return, something cumulative is building an inner architecture strong enough to host the very quantum shift your system once believed would destroy it. At first, the changes are so subtle that your old self almost misses them. You wake up one morning and notice that the familiar spike of dread is softer, not gone but quieter, as if someone turned the volume down a few notches. Your mind still reaches for something to be anxious about, but your body doesn't follow as fast. There is a small gap between thought and reaction. That gap is a doorway. You feel irritation rise in a conversation where you would normally abandon yourself for harmony or explode to reclaim power. Instead of defaulting to either script, you notice the heat in your chest, the clench in your jaw, the speed of your thoughts. You breathe, not theatrically, but like someone who intends to stay. You speak one sentence that is more honest than your nervous system thinks is safe. The world does not end. Something in you registers this as a glitch, an error in the old code. The prediction model falters. Wait, I stayed. I told the truth. I did not disappear. Impact did not annihilate me. The quantum field, which has been tracking every one of these tiny deviations, begins to incorporate them as new constants. Where you once broadcast a constant hum of, I'm about to be harmed, your signal is now laced with, I might be able to remain. Remaining is a different frequency than running. The realities that orbit around that frequency are different too. You start bumping into them. An invitation arrives that aligns eerily well with what you've quietly desired, but unlike before, your body doesn't recoil as if it's a trap. There is cautiousness, yes, but there is also an unfamiliar sense of can. You recognize that your nervous system may still tremble, but it no longer automatically equates expansion with annihilation. You say yes not from desperation, not from the need to prove anything, but from the simple recognition that you have built enough capacity to hold what you are stepping into. The moment you do, multiple threads in your timeline rearrange. People who resonate with your old state begin to drift, not with dramatic betrayals, but with a quiet, inevitable distancing. Conversations that once revolved around shared scarcity or shared fear suddenly feel thin. You listen and realize that you are no longer nourished by rehashing the same survival stories. You are still compassionate, but less attached, less anchored in that frequency. At the same time, new people enter not as saviors, but as reflections. Their nervous systems are not identical to yours, but their baseline is different. They do not treat chaos as currency. They do not mistake urgency for importance. They are not fascinated by your trauma performance. They are interested in your presence. Around them, your body receives yet more evidence. This level of safety exists. This way of relating is possible. This field is real. Your external life has not become a movie. Bills still need to be paid. Decisions still carry weight. But the texture of your days changes. There is more signal, less noise. You notice you are no longer manufacturing crises to feel awake. You can sit in a quiet room and not feel like you are being suffocated by emptiness. This is how quantum shift actually looks when it begins to stabilize. Not a permanent high, but an emerging normal where your nervous system is not hijacking every moment with predictions of doom. And as your inner landscape reorganizes, an identity fracture starts to heal. For years, you carried two selves, the one who believed in timelines, destiny, and the quantum field, and the one who braced for the worst in every practical situation. You thought of this as hypocrisy, or weakness, or lack of faith. It wasn't. It was a system out of sync with itself. Now, the distance between those selves shrinks. The part of you that speaks of quantum reality and the part of you that pays rent, answers emails, navigates conflict. They begin to share a nervous system that no longer treats them as belonging to different universes. Your mysticism is no longer an escape hatch from your life. It is the lens through which you inhabit your life more fully. You notice that your prayers, intentions, and visualizations feel less like begging and more like collaboration. You are no longer asking an external force to override your biology. You are aligning your biology with the information you claim to believe. The field responds with precision. You walk into spaces that used to crush you, and instead of collapsing, you feel your spine lengthen. You hear old voices of criticism in your mind, but they sound like echoes from a different epoch. Your body, who once took those voices as law, now pauses and asks a new question. Is that actually true now? If the answer is no, and often it is your cell's update, another line of code changes. The old contract with fear loses yet more clauses. You may still have moments of collapse, of old panic, of chasing the future out of habit, but they are not the whole weather pattern anymore. They are passing storms over a landscape that is fundamentally different. And somewhere in that landscape, without fanfare, without trumpet blasts, a realization arrives. You are no longer begging to be shifted into some distant quantum future. You are standing at the threshold where your reality is already reconfiguring itself to match the body that finally believes it can survive its own expansion. There comes a moment where the language of shift has to become the posture of your life. You have listened, you have understood, you have felt the edges of something immense pressing against the inside of your skin. You know now that the barrier has never been the quantum field's reluctance, but your nervous system's belief that it could not safely host what you were asking to receive. So here you stand, at the seam where your old contract with fear thins, and the new agreement with your own expansion waits to be signed. Not with ink, with behavior. The field is listening to what you do after this. It will watch the way you greet your next morning. Do you wake up and immediately sprint into the future? Or do you place your hand on your chest, your other hand on your lower abdomen, and grant yourself 10 seconds of undivided presence? 10 seconds where you are not fixing, not forecasting, not rehearsing, just acknowledging, I am here with you. Those 10 seconds are not small. They are a declaration of jurisdiction. My consciousness returns to my body as the primary site of my reality. It will watch how you move through your next activation. When the email lands, the comment stings, the silence stretches. Will you exit yourself? Or will you stay long enough to feel the raw electricity in your nerves and breathe as if you are allowed to exist inside that voltage without dissolving? Staying does not mean liking it. It means refusing to abandon the one presence the moment actually needs, yours. The field will watch how you treat the next quiet day. Will you declare yourself stuck because nothing dramatic is happening, or will you recognize neutrality as the training ground for your new baseline? Will you let your system register, again and again, that a life without constant threat is not a trap, it is the platform from which coherent timelines are built? Each of these choices is a vote for a future where your body is not dragged like a reluctant animal behind your spiritual language, but walks beside it. A future where your quantum vocabulary is not a costume you wear online, but the native tongue of how you inhabit your own nervous system. You have been chasing the future because your biology did not believe your shift was survivable. That story is no longer the only script available. You are now capable of something more precise, more exact, and far more powerful, becoming the person whose very state makes the shift inevitable. Not by force, by congruence. When your mind, heart, and body agree that a reality is safe enough to host, the field does not need to be convinced. It simply mirrors. The people, opportunities, and configurations that match your new baseline will begin to appear not as tests, but as answers. Your work will not be to chase them down, but to recognize them as the natural consequence of a nervous system that no longer treats peace like an ambush. So this is the initiation. From this point forward, you stop asking, when will my quantum shift finally happen? And start asking, what does my next regulated breath make inevitable? You do not need to dramatize this moment. You only need to decide that you will no longer abandon your own body to reach a future that was always waiting inside it. The transmission has done what it came to do. It has turned the light on in the one place your reality has been waiting to be rewritten. Not out there, here, in you. And as you walk from this sentence back into your life, the field moves with you, adjusting, aligning, reorganizing itself around a single, silent upgrade in your signal. You no longer chase the future. You let the future find the body that finally feels like home.